Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has provided rare insight into Ankara's strategic efforts during Syria's devastating conflict, claiming that Turkey played a pivotal role in preventing direct military interventions by both Iran and Russia. The disclosure underscores Turkey's evolving role as a regional power and sheds light on its delicate balancing act during one of the most complex and consequential crises in recent history. Fidan's revelations also amplify ongoing tensions with Syria and its former allies, Iran and Russia, while raising questions about Turkey's broader intentions in the Middle East. Speaking during a diplomatic briefing, Fidan articulated that Ankara's primary objective was to avoid an escalation that could lead to catastrophic consequences for the region while simultaneously protecting Turkey's security interests. He revealed that Ankara's diplomatic channels with Tehran and Moscow were in full swing during the height of the Syrian war. These efforts, according to Fidan, were aimed at convincing both powers to limit their military interventions and avoid actions that would further destabilize Syria or draw in other regional players. Fidan stressed that Turkey's actions were not only about maintaining regional stability but also about addressing its immediate concerns over the rise of armed Kurdish groups in northern Syria. Groups such as the YPG, which Ankara considers an extension of the PKK, a designated terrorist organization, posed a direct threat to Turkey's security. Turkey's support for certain Sunni rebel groups was not an act of aggression against Syria but rather a means to establish a buffer against threats along our borders, Fidan noted. The backdrop to these statements is the rapidly shifting geopolitical reality in Syria following the ousting of President Bashar al-Assad. Turkey, which supported opposition forces during the conflict, has seen its influence grow in northern Syria. However, this has placed it at odds with Iran and Russia, who were among Assad's strongest backers. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has long accused Turkey of exacerbating the conflict by supporting what he calls terrorist groups. Assad's government has consistently criticized Turkey's military operations in northern Syria, describing them as a violation of Syrian sovereignty. Turkey's operations, including cross-border incursions targeting Kurdish militias, have resulted in the establishment of Turkish-backed zones in parts of northern Syria. For Damascus, this is nothing short of an occupation. Iran, a critical ally of Assad, has also voiced strong opposition to Turkey's role in Syria. Recently, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei hinted at regional betrayals in comments that many interpreted as a direct rebuke of Ankara. For Tehran, the Syrian conflict was a pivotal battleground in its broader strategy to maintain the so-called Axis of Resistance, a coalition of forces opposed to Western and Israeli influence in the Middle East. Turkey's support for Sunni rebels, many of whom were hostile to Iranian-backed militias, clashed directly with Tehran's objectives. Fidan's remarks suggest that Turkey used diplomatic channels to restrain Iran from escalating its military involvement in Syria. While Tehran deployed significant resources, including Hezbollah fighters and other proxy forces, to support Assad, Fidan argued that Turkey's efforts prevented Iran from committing even more heavily to the conflict. Russia, meanwhile, also found itself at odds with Turkey during the war, despite moments of tactical cooperation. Moscow's military intervention in 2015 was a turning point in the conflict, allowing Assad to regain key territories. However, Fidan revealed that Ankara worked tirelessly to persuade Moscow to limit its operations to specific objectives rather than pursuing an all-out campaign that could have further destabilized Syria. Turkey's relationship with Russia during the Syrian war has been both cooperative and adversarial. The two nations found common ground in the Astana peace process, a trilateral initiative involving Iran, Russia, and Turkey aimed at de-escalating the conflict. Yet, their interests often clashed, particularly over Turkey's military operations in areas like Idlib, which Moscow viewed as harboring extremist elements. Fidan's disclosures highlight the complex web of alliances and rivalries that define the Syrian conflict. While Ankara has positioned itself as a stabilizing force, critics argue that its support for armed opposition groups prolonged the war and contributed to the humanitarian catastrophe. Turkey's actions have also strained its relationships with both its allies and adversaries, complicating its role in the region's future. As the Syrian conflict transitions into a new phase following Assad's removal, Turkey's actions are under increased scrutiny. While it seeks to secure its influence in northern Syria, it must also navigate deeply fraught relationships with Iran and Russia. Both nations remain wary of Ankara's intentions and its long-term goals in Syria. Fiden's comments also come amid renewed tensions between Turkey and Syria's new leadership. The transitional government in Damascus has expressed skepticism about Ankara's intentions, particularly regarding the status of Turkish-backed zones in northern Syria. For Turkey, these areas are crucial for national security, but for Damascus, they represent an affront to its sovereignty. Regionally, Turkey's role has drawn mixed reactions. Some Arab states view Ankara's actions as a counterbalance to Iranian influence, while others see its involvement as destabilizing. The international community, too, remains divided, with Western nations focusing more on the humanitarian consequences of the conflict than on Turkey's strategic maneuvers. As Ankara charts its course in post-Assad Syria, it faces a series of challenges. Rebuilding trust with regional and international players will be key, as will addressing the humanitarian crisis in Syria, which has displaced millions. Fiden's remarks underscore the high stakes for Turkey, which must balance its national security concerns with its broader aspirations for regional influence. Turkey's involvement in Syria serves as a case study in the complexities of modern conflict. While it played a significant role in shaping the outcome, the long-term consequences of its actions remain to be seen. Whether Turkey emerges as a stabilizing force or a source of further division will depend on its ability to navigate the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that define the Middle East. For now, Ankara's role in Syria remains both pivotal and deeply contested, with far-reaching implications for the region's future.